Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Warren from the Paladin Journal, and today we're going to do another book review, this time for Ben Counter's Galaxy in Flames. This is the third novel in the Horus Heresy series from Black Library, and it is quite possibly one of my top favorite books of the series. Although, ever since this one came out, there have been so many good ones that, it's kind of hard to rate them up and down one way or the other. But I have to say that even still, I don't know, 15 years later after it was published, this still holds up as one of my absolute best reads. And the story for this book is it's a continuation from False Gods, which was written by Graham McNeil. And in this one, we see how the Sons of Horus have changed over the last few months. And we are coming to a head within the opening gambits of the Horus Heresy. Horus has organized four entire legions, and they're going to assault the world of Istawan 3, which has been taken over by an insurrection of an imperial governor. And there's so much going on in this novel because this is the first time, as far as we know, that the forces of the Great Crusade, the forces of the Emperor, of the Imperium, they're fighting against an enemy who is one of their own, who used to be one of their own. Istvan 3 was pacified by the forces of the Raven Guard some years back, and now we see that the governor has rebelled against imperial authority, and you know that has their blood up for all the Primarchs, for all the legionaries, and everyone in our central cast, because it's what they're fighting against is not the Xenos, it's not someone who refused to believe in the Imperium, and it's not a recalcitrant human colony or whatever else is the case, right? This is their own people. And that forms part of the complexity of this novel. And right from the get go, you're straight into the action as the combined Legion forces they assault an outer space defense system, and then they begin to invade Ispawn 3. And like I said earlier, there's so much that's coming to a head here. It's really tough to put into words, because there have been so many ongoing threads from the last two novels. And not only do we meet some new characters, but also we have the return of some cameos from before, such as Saul Tarbitz and Lucius of the Emperor's Children. They make a comeback. Eidolon, their Lord Commander, makes a return. We have Nathaniel Garrow, and of course the entire cast, the main cast of the Sons of Horus Legion and the 63rd Expedition. And it's right from the get go, like I said, it's pedal to the metal and it's action all the way through. But in the meantime, you do get these flashes of some really good character work. And while I do say that this is one of my favorite novels because it has a lot of these really cool moments that I absolutely love, such as when the Imperial Warlord Titan, I believe it's a Warlord Titan, the Diaz Irae, which is like the chief Titan that is in service of the 63rd Expedition, when it begins its own assault on the loyalist forces. I have to keep that in mind, loyalist forces. And when you know there's so many other examples of treachery that happen both during the ongoing fighting of Istvan 3 and even later on after the massacre. And it's unbelievable that it's like 300 or so odd pages, and Ben Counter packs in so much stuff that it can almost leave you reeling from one moment to the next. And so yeah, of course, the pace is frenetic, and but when you do stop for those character moments, such as Saul Tarbitz, anything to do with Saul Tarbitz, or the fateful encounter between Loken and Torgadon versus Abaddon and Horus Aximon, it's like you just left a sense of wow. Even when Horus unveils the massacre to the remembrancers aboard his ship, and it's like this is really bloody stuff. This is really cool stuff because it's like I said, there's so much going on, and you're like, okay, are they gonna make it out? Like, what's gonna happen? Because if you've been if you're aware of the lore, then you know a lot of that's gonna happen. But of course, it's about how the characters deal with it, and there are so many moments of just absolute, you know, I wouldn't say perfection quite so much, but absolute, like, just awesomeness. Like I said, the scenes with the duels between the loyalist Mournival and the traitor ones, or when Saul Tarvitz is defending a combined Legion force against the now traitors, or when Garrow is, when he makes his entrance into the whole thing, or when the Remembrancers they see what Horus is really about to do, and even when there's a character that was introduced in the last novel. She's also a remembrancer, although she's more like a biographer, sort of. I'm not exactly sure. I don't exactly remember the title that she had, but Mistress Petronilla Vivar. She's one of the, she belongs to the nobility of Terra, and she comes to the expedition in order to chronicle Horus's life and his ongoing ventures, so to speak. And there's so much happening there, because in the last book we saw this huge moment of weakness when Horus is injured. He's quite literally on his deathbed, and then he pours his heart out about the Crusade, the Emperor, Sanguinius, and so much more. And a lot of what he says to her, I mean, we don't know a lot of it, but we do get some flashes of it from Graham McNeil. And then this novel is all about how Vivar is making all of that into a narrative that she can put forward. And of course, it's going to have a very tragic ending. And I think that's what encapsulates the entire novel. This entire trilogy, the first three novels of the series, it's all about the tragedy of the Astartes, the tragedy of the legions, the tragedy of the Primarchs of the Great Crusade, because there's so much that goes wrong, and so many characters, they make one after another. They make the wrong decisions, or they make some critical mistakes, or they buy into some kind of propaganda, even the Primarchs, and that all weaves together into this one. And this is where it all blooms. So, Galaxy in Flames, it's a very appropriate title for the book. You see some great characterization of Horus himself, the War Master. Garville Loken, I think he had the roughest deal out of any of the characters, even though, there were so many who were just like outright murdered through no fault of their own. They're not even involved in any of the fighting or whatever, like Vivar or so many Remembrancers. But even when it comes to the Astartes, you see the final break in the brotherhoods between not just legionaries within a single legion, but legionaries across legions. And that's one of the high points of the novel that Ben Counter captures so beautifully for my part. And I think that's what defines so much of the novel for me, because this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to see from a novel like this, which is about the Istvan 3 massacre. And of course, we know that there's a much bigger massacre that's going to come when the drop site massacre happens, and almost three entire legions are almost completely wiped out. And you know there's so much build up in the novel, so much conclusions to different storylines, but also there's so much setup that happens for what's gonna come next. And it's a really nice throughput. It's a great ending to the first trilogy, although book four, The Flight of the Eisenstein by James Swallow, it's a perfect companion to this one, to this entire trilogy, in fact. And I think together these four novels form the core of what Horus Heresy is about. And I think, if you compare like the opening trilogy, because so many people, they consider it to be the opening trilogy because it's a straight through line of the major characters from book one to book two and then book three. And I think this is a great ending to that. And also, of course, great setup to follow from this. So, anyways, yeah, just as with before with the first novel and the second novel, I highly recommend this one too. As I said, it's one of my top favorite novels, and it really cannot be understated how much potential there is within the novel, and how so many of the later novels and novellas and short stories that branch out from this point onwards, whether they jumping back in time or forward in time, or even covering some of the events of Isman 3, how they carry forward a lot of what's in here. And you know, between the start of the heresy to the siege of Terra, there's a gap of like 7 years, which we know so little about. And this is the beginning of that. And we're gonna start to discover so many things about what happened within the legions with these characters. Some we will see again, whether they're loyalists or whether they're traitors, and some we won't see again, unfortunately. But there's so there's such strong undercurrents of just the absolute horror within the legions, because like I said, the divisions between the brotherhoods, they're all sealed now. Sealed as in they're made final, they're lying in the sand, or they're marked in stone, and no one's ever going to recover from this, least of all any of the Primarchs. And you just see so much that this is the high point of the heresy. Isstvan 3 is where the Great Crusade ended for real, and this is where the heresy began. This was the greatest betrayal that War Master Horus could have perpetrated. Even though we know about the Dropset Massacre, we know about a lot of these other worlds and cultures that he burns in the intervening 7 years, and even the siege itself. This is what sets the tone for everything that follows. And again, perfect ending to the trilogy. So absolutely, when you get a chance, definitely read it. Read the books in order, at least the first 4 books. You could even say the first 5 books and a few books after that. I would say they're absolute critical reading, because, like I said, book 4, The Flight of the Eisenstein, that's all about the Death Guard and Nathaniel Garrow. And then book 5, Fulgrim, again, by Graham McNeil, that covers almost the entirety of what the Emperor's Children are about in this period that is covered in this novel or in the opening trilogy, and it forms the basis of so many other things. So absolutely smashing. And I have to point this out at this point because I didn't before, but each book, it has these little bands of color on them, and as far as I know, they're never covered. It appears to be totally random. I've never found a good explanation for what the color coding is about, but it exists and it's there, so we just gotta accept it. So, anyways, guys, this was my review for book 3 of the Horus Heresy series. I'm gonna have a review of book 4 very soon. I know I've been quite late on these, but again, absolute great reads, and I highly recommend it. So, in the end, just make sure to check out my other socials, and whether you want some hobby stuff or covering some other topics of discussion like World of Warcraft or some other comics I'm reading or any of that stuff, you can find it on all my socials. It's all in the link, and it's all in the video itself as well, the description. So check it out, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.